Welcome everybody to episode 10 of our French Revolution series. So far, the revolution had shaken France for 3 years, but nothing prepared the world for what would happen in 1792. A monarchy that had ruled for centuries collapsed in a matter of hours. The king was imprisoned, and the old world was even erased. The people, led by the Sans-Culottes, began building something entirely new. From the makeshift trials and mass panic to the guillotine and the birth of the French Republic. This was a moment when France abandoned kings forever and declared that sovereignty belonged to the people. The old world was dead, and anything that would resemble it was erased in favor of a new era, a new beginning, a revolutionary beginning. On August 10, 1792, the Paris Commune, made up of revolutionary working-class sections, successfully stormed the Tuileries palace and overthrew King Louis XVI, marking the end of the monarchy. Article 1. The French people are invited to form a national convention. Article 2. The king is temporarily relieved of his functions until the convention has the opportunity to establish and pronounce on the measures it deems necessary. Article 3. The Assembly declares that in the future and for the next convention, every citizen aged 25 and over who can live off their work shall have the right to vote in total equality and may also stand for election. Not only is the king suspended from his functions, but the National Assembly is dissolved and replaced by a national convention, elected by universal male suffrage, as requested by the sections of Paris. The Paris Commune, a new entity on the political scene, demands and obtains custody of Louis XVI. On August 13, Louis, Marie Antoinette, and their children were transferred to the Temple of Prison, formerly a medieval fortress used by the Knights Templar, in the Marais district of Paris. A few days later, during an impressive ceremony in front of the Tuileries Palace, the people of Paris celebrate their victory by honoring the hundreds of victims from the events of August 10th. However, repeating the pattern that began in 1789, victory is always followed by defeat, and hope is replaced by fear. On September 2nd, 1792, the city of Verdun surrendered to the Prussian forces, who were now dangerously close to Paris. Suddenly, an irrational terror grips the Sans-Culottes. They fear that the nobles and refractory priests imprisoned in the capital's jails might rise up and assist the advancing Prussian army. In all the prisons of Paris, a brutal and improvised form of summary justice unfolds. Over the course of 3 days, around 2,000 prisoners are massacred, nobles, refractory priests, and ordinary suspects alike, victims of panic that spiraled into deadly violence. The Sans-Culottes would now carry the weight of this bloodshed, the memory of a massacre born from fear. But sometimes history pivots on a single unexpected moment, and for revolutionary France, that moment came just later at Valmy. On September 20th, 1792, against all odds, the revolutionary armies, despite being heavily outnumbered and less trained, the French soldiers managed to hold their ground and force the Prussians to retreat. Galvanized by this unexpected victory, on September 21st, 1792, the newly formed National Convention officially abolished the monarchy in France. The very next day, the convention declared that all official documents from that point forward would be dated to year 1 of the French Republic. In a bold break from the past, revolutionaries declared September 1792 as year 1 of the French Republic. This wasn't merely the formation of a new government, it was the birth of a new era, a deliberate rejection of everything that had come before, kings, priests, and centuries of inequality. The old calendar tied to Christian holidays and royal traditions was discarded in favor of the new revolutionary calendar, officially adopted in October 1793, but retroactively starting from that September day. The 12 months were renamed after the rhythms of nature, Vendémiaire, Brumaire, Frimaire, and so on, and each month was divided into 3 10-day weeks, or décades. eliminating Sundays and religious festivals. The remaining days of the year were dedicated to secular virtues such as reason, labor, and genius. By resetting time itself, the revolution proclaimed that France was beginning anew, from zero. No longer would history revolve around monarchs or saints. Instead, time would center on the people. Yet, despite its radical symbolism, the calendar failed. It confused the public, exhausted workers, and alienated religious citizens. Tied to the revolution's most extreme phase, it quietly vanished in 1806 under Napoleon, a fleeting dream of a completely remade world. The public needed symbols, and once again the revolutionary imagination turned to the heritage of ancient art. A Roman goddess symbolizing the new liberty won by the people emerged, a woman adorned with a Phrygian cap. She was soon baptized Marianne by an Occitan song. Marianne, the goddess of the Republic, quickly became the emblem of the nation. But in this Republican regime, what role remained for Louis Capet, the deposed sovereign imprisoned in the Temple prison? Should he be tried by a tribunal? This question consumed the new political class during the autumn of 1792, and it became a focal point of contention. One of the most vocal figures in this debate was the new Paris deputy Maximilien Robespierre, who argued, "Bringing Louis XVI before a tribunal to discuss the innocence or guilt of the former king would have been a scandal." The real trial began with the insurrection of August 10th. The verdict was the end of the monarchy. It was evident that trying him would mean questioning the revolution itself. Therefore, we decided that it would be the convention, in its wisdom, that would decide Louis Capet's fate, whether he should live or die. During this trial, the revolutionaries deliberately referred to Louis XVI as Louis Capet, stripping him of his royal title, avoiding Your Majesty or any reverence to him as king. The name Capet derived from Hugh Capet, the founder of the Capetian dynasty in the 10th century. By using this surname, the revolutionaries symbolically removed Louis from the divine realm of kingship and placed him back into the realm of ordinary men. It was a powerful statement. You are no longer a sovereign, you're just Louis, one citizen among millions. This move reflected the revolutionaries' belief that sovereignty belonged to the people, not to the monarchs or royal bloodlines. Ironically, Louis himself had never used the name Capet and may not have been recognized it. This move reflected the revolutionary belief that sovereignty belonged to the people, not to monarchs or royal bloodlines. Ironically, Louis himself had never used the name Capet and may not have even recognized it when addressed in that way during his trial. At the convention, Louis Capet became a passive witness to his own indictment. When asked whether he had conspired against the nation, 687 out of 749 deputies voted in favor of declaring him guilty. However, the question of his punishment remained contentious. Robespierre, who was a vocal proponent of the king's death, later remarked, "In my view, there was only one possible answer. He had to be executed to engrave in everyone's heart the contempt for royalty. His death will be a blow to the last supporters of the king." Robespierre's view was shared by other key revolutionary figures, including Danton, Desmoulins, Marat, and the artist David. In the end, a slim majority of 387 deputies voted for Louis XVI execution, while 334 voted against it. On the old square, later renamed Place de la Concorde, a guillotine was set up. At 10:22 a.m. on January 21, 1793, Louis Capet, formerly King of France, was executed by guillotine. The guillotine, a symbol of the French Revolution, was a machine designed for swift and efficient execution. Introduced in 1792, it became the primary method of capital punishment in France, known for its precision and equality. intended to offer the same fate to all, regardless of social rank. The guillotine is associated with Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine. It wasn't practically invented by him. Guillotine was a physician and member of the National Assembly. He proposed the idea in 1789 as a more humane and equal method of execution for all social classes. Prior to this, nobles were often beheaded with a sword or axe, while commoners could face the brutal methods like hanging or the wheel. The device was designed by Dr. Antoine Louis, secretary of the Academy of Surgery, and crafted by Tobias Schmidt, a German carpenter and harpsichord maker. There is, however, an apocryphal story suggesting that just before his execution, King Louis XVI asked if the guillotine's blade were sharp enough to sever his neck in a single stroke, questioning whether the process would be swift and painless. While this tale is likely fictional, it underscores the growing perception of the guillotine as an efficient and equalizer in the execution process, even as it marked the end of the monarchy. As the guillotine's blade dropped on January 21st, 1793, it didn't just end Louis's Capet life. It sliced through centuries of monarchy, leaving the world without the nobility that at that point put the power in the hands of the people. The revolution sparked by the fiery storming of the Tuileries had fueled by the dreams of the Paris Commune, and of course it dared to hit the central powers of the kingdom that was at that point the monarchy. What kind of signal is sent throughout Europe knowing that the citizens actually killed their king? You may imagine in a world full of monarchy and nobility, it would have sent shockwaves of terror and fear throughout the monarchies of Europe. Do you think this new world could hold his own ideals, or would the weight of these ideals drag it down eventually? Well, hang out for the following chapters to find out more. This was chapter 10, and I will see you next time. Thank you for following up. Bye.